How has your work with bread impacted your life and ministry?
My work with bread over the years impacted my ministry just by exposing me first to different religious traditions, different colleagues in the area, which I wouldn't have access to normally because I would ordinarily hang around with people who are Unitarian Universalist, and so that widened my perspective of the wholeness of Columbus and what the community was that my congregation was serving. So that's the first and foremost. I also, came to really like a lot of these colleagues that admired their ministries and what the things that they were doing. Um, and I also um, really benefited from the notion that is so central to bread, that um, power is important in a world where powerlessness is so prevalent, and that charity and social justice are very different from each other. Um, and Hopefully the social justice that I preached about at the church was also about self-awareness, um, of um, my own place in this larger world where I'm affected by all the stuff that goes on too, so that I have to self-examine. I can't say I'm the saved person saving people who are unfortunate. I have to look at my place in the whole thing, and that was something that was gradually an awareness as I went through my ministry. Was the self-awareness part of justice work, and how important that is. So.
What is the most memorable story that you have from your time with bread?
Um, well, one of the there's several memorable stories. I mean, we would have tremendous discussions with the ministerial colleagues. We had a retreat once, and I remember the conversations we had at this retreat were amazing. And even though bread clergy agreed not to talk about certain topics just to make things easier, we actually talked about some of these topics. The fact that I'm gay was, people said, "Well, what's that like?" They would ask, they asked questions at the retreat, and so there was some real stuff that went on outside of the parameters, which I really appreciated. Another meeting was a Nehemiah meeting. That was very troublesome to a lot of people in my congregation, tremendously troublesome, and I had to explore that with them. Was when it was a woman running for county office, I seem to remember. She was asked to give a 2 or 3 minute talk. Well, she went on, and they held up a sign saying, your time is over, your time is about to be over, and then your time is over, and she wouldn't stop, and people signaled her, and she was going on, and she was basically campaigning as opposed to doing what she said she was going to do. And so a whole group of people stood up and turned their backs to her, and I thought it was the right thing to do. I was so angry at her because she was so unconscious, and she was, our meetings are timed. This was explained to her ahead of time that we have these time meetings, and you can't just go off like that. But she was like totally unconscious, and there was no way to get her to stop. And so people did this, and that was very upsetting to a lot of people in many churches. And I actually had to work hard at the congregation to get people to think, well, sometimes when you're doing something like that, yes, it may seem rude to do something like that, but it's not rude. It's responding to her rudeness by saying stop. And so that was a very powerful thing for me to witness. And it affected me greatly because I had to wrestle with the fact that this was very discomforting to a lot of folks, not only in the congregation I was serving, but in a lot of other congregations too. And it got me to talk more about those kinds of things. That social justice isn't nice all the time. It's like it's demanding, and you have to set boundaries there, like you have to set boundaries every place else in life. So, um, so those were significant events.
Would you describe the first Nehemiah action that you attended?
Um, I don't remember which one was the first, actually, so I can't. Um, I served the congregation 17 years, and I got involved with Brad from very early on. And I think my experience must have been, oh, there's a lot of people here. But one of the things I really valued about Brad was that there were people of all colors sitting side by side, and people of different religious expression side by side, and that's something you don't just see every day. And that, to me, just that alone was a powerful statement about hope for this world, where this kind of stuff can be deliberately done together, this kind of justice work. And I remember at the meetings very often thinking, this is going to be very uncomfortable for a lot of people, bringing people up and asking them to answer questions, yes or no. It was discomforting because the people sometimes were up there and they clearly wouldn't answer anything positive, and so it would make people uncomfortable. I said that's how you do things. You name things. You hold people accountable, and holding people accountable means witnessing. And so it was hard. I think a lot of people would talk to me about it, and it was a struggle. But I think things have changed. I think people understand that struggle now, and so and I think I had to struggle with it at first because I'm not somebody who, as a minister who pastors, who is there for people in discomfort and stuff like that. I don't try and cause discomfort, as trying to say, I'm sorry, you're grieving, you lost somebody. I'm there to hold people, but I learned over time about saying no and in boundaries. So I was working with this too. So it changed my ministry that way. Is it toughened me up a little bit about what needed to be done.
What was the most exciting part about the Nehemiah action?
I think I probably covered that in the sense that the excitement about it was seeing that people could gather together in great numbers and from all different religious persuasions. I mean, the congregation I served was a wonderful, wonderful congregation, absolutely terrific. And we were kind of the odd congregation out because theologically we were very different from everybody else, and in how we expressed our religious depth, we were quite different, and I think it was exciting for me that we could do this, that this that interfaith justice work was something that could actually move things forward a step at a time. I always appreciated that there was like concrete steps that were taken in each of these meetings, and the issues that we addressed were not vast issues, but specific issues. And I always thought that that made the most sense. Um, you walk by taking steps. Um, you roll in a wheelchair by rolling forward so much at a time. You don't you don't leap. You don't fly. You don't do anything like that. It's like it's really human to just take one step at a time and address that, and even some unglamorous kinds of things. So uh, I was very impressed with Brad, and I missed the meetings sometimes, clergy meetings, because I had things that I had to do that eclipsed that in the congregation, and so did other people. And I had my own ministerial meetings. The Unitarian Universalist ministers would gather here and there, and so it wasn't something that, even though I liked it, I could always participate in because of the largeness of my own ministry. But it was. I used to brag about it to colleagues. Actually, I say, this is a really big thing here in Columbus, and it's huge, and it is transformative. Um, I was always bragging about how we did things here. So, and I gave several talks at our national meeting around red issues and stuff like that. So I was happy to do that. So that's it.